Alright, so like Randy said, I'm Will. So I'm home for the summer, and this summer I've been interning with Tom and Sam here at the church, just trying to get some experience and just kind of figure out if this is what God's calling me into, this type of ministry, preaching or youth ministry, whatever that may be. And this summer I've learned a lot, and I just got back a few weeks ago from mix with the middle schoolers. That was a lot of fun. So this summer has just been really good, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to get to be back up here again. Let me start off with prayer and then we'll get going. God, I thank you for this morning and just all that you have in store for us to hear, God. I pray that you will just calm my nerves, God, as you know how nervous I am right now. God, I pray that you will just empty me today, God, and just help all of us today just leave our distractions at the door, God. Just help us to block out all these other voices just to be able to hear your voice this morning. God, I'm thankful for what you have, and God, I pray that you will just speak and that we will hear what we need to hear this morning. And God, I thank you. I love you. In Jesus' name I pray. All right, amen. All right, guys. So how many of you guys have been to an escape room? Show of hands. Anyone been to an escape room? All right, cool. So you guys know what's the escape room. That it's a lot of like outside the box thinking, and you have to be smart to an extent just to kind of be able to get some of these clues and what's going on to be able to help your team escape. So about a few years ago, I went to the escape room with Lindsay and Drew Jeffers, Natalie, Kendall, and Joseph. And before, we were talking about what would make this more interesting, just to kind of figure out who's going to be the weakest link in our group before we go. Because, you know, it's a lot of thinking and all that. So, I'm the first one to vote. I vote Lindsay and Natalie as the two weakest links. Like, that's just who my vote was at the time. The rest of the group, they didn't think so. They all voted me as the weakest link of the team. I'm like, this can't be right. So, I'm like, let's take it to other people here in our body. So, if I can remember right, we went to Tom and Stacy. They both voted me. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I thought you guys would, at least one of you guys would vote differently, but no. It's okay. It's okay. I can handle it. Then I went to Randy and Lori. I'm like, yes, Randy, we have that connection where he's going to vote for not me. Randy, you let me down. You lost. We have like the standard of like points. You dropped a few points with me, Randy, because you voted me. Now Lori, she didn't vote. She didn't want to hurt people's feelings. She didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Joseph, she didn't vote because I think she didn't want to hurt her son's feelings. That's why she didn't vote. Because it probably would have been you, maybe. I'm thinking. But anyways, we get to the escape room. And I'm trying to like hustle in there. I'm like, all right, I got to prove myself that I'm not the weakest link and I'm not going to hold our team back from escape. So I get in there, I'm trying to find keys, can't really find them. But we found one key, and then here comes the math part of the section, or the escape room. I'm like, oh great, I can't do this. Math's not my subject, so I just kind of leave that. But as the game gets going on, I start picking up more and more clues. And we get into this wonder room, and I'm like, all right, outside the box thinking, where could this next clue be? Because this is like the last room, I think. And so I'm like, they mentioned something could be on the wall, so I'm like, let's flip the lights off. So I flipped the lights off. Well, we had to turn them on about a second later as soon as I flipped them off. Because a girl in our group, I'm going to have her remain nameless, got scared. So we had to turn the lights on and use our clue. Well, we used our clue and they're like, you might want to try turning off the lights again just to be able to find this clue. So I'm like, yes, I did it. I'm not holding us back. Whoever made us turn the lights on, you're holding us back. You're the weakest link right now. Not me. But we escaped the room, and at the end of it, we're all driving home, and we're talking about, you know, we all contributed pretty equally. Like, there was really no weak link to our group. And here's the thing with that. There's just so many voices, like, that try to speak into our lives. And we hear so many different things of people trying to tell us different things about ourselves, and we maybe even feed our own thoughts. But we just have lots of voices that speak into our lives, but there's only one that we need to hear. This morning I want us just to wrestle with that and then this question throughout the sermon this morning. And it is, what voices are you hearing in your life that are blocking you from hearing what God says about you? This summer we've been in this series called Go Deep, and we're still going to stick with that theme this morning. And I would just want to share a story about another person in the Bible this morning who had different voices trying to tell him different things about himself. We're going to look at a story of the life of David today. And in Acts 13, God calls David a man after my own heart. We can identify with David in lots of ways. He is an example of how to get deeper, and in the end of this story, he didn't give in to the voices around him, but he listened to God's voice. Before we get into our story, I just want to remind you that we have lots of voices that speak into our lives, but there is only one that we need to hear. So today, we're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 17, so if you guys want to go ahead and flip into your Bibles there, that's where we're going to be at this morning. And this is the story of David and Goliath, and I'm sure many of you guys know this story already. But today, I just want you to picture yourself there. Picture yourself as David in the valley of Elah. Now, my dad, he and a few others just came back from Israel recently. And one of the things they told us about Israel was that it's very hot. So picture yourself there. You're David. You're just a small little boy. And it's hot, and you're going in to this valley where there's a bunch of soldiers there. And you're just small. And it may be intimidating. So you're there. It's hot. You're in the valley with a bunch of soldiers. So to get us where we need to be, let me recap the beginning of the story. David is the youngest of his brothers at this time. And he's just young, and his three older brothers go off to war with Saul's army. David, he has to stay home and take care of the sheep. So Jesse, David's father, later asked him to go to where the Israelite army is camped. That's the valley, that's where we're at right now. And take food to his brothers, and then also just to check up to see how they're doing, making sure they're safe, But so David goes, and by the time he gets there, Goliath had already been coming out for days at this point and taunting the Israelite army. And there's been no fighting at this point. It's just been standstill. Goliath's coming out, and the Israelites are just running back to their camp afraid. David, he finds his brothers, and he gets up there. And when he gets up there, Goliath, he comes out for his usual daily taunting of the Israelite army and just taunts them. But David hears him. Today, I want to tell you about 3 voices that will come against you in your spiritual journey if you desire to sacrifice and go deeper with God. Let's pick up in verse 26 of 1 Samuel 17. David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." "Now what have I done?" said David. "Can't I even speak?" He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose a heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." The first voice that is competing with God's voice in your life is your inner voice. We find David saying he will go out and fight Goliath. David, he is just a weak and small boy. He was not a trained soldier like Goliath was. He didn't have the best armor. He didn't have any of this. David, he was underrated and forgotten a lot of times. You could say David was the weakest link in his family. See, when Samuel came to anoint the next king over Israel, and he came to Jesse's family, David was left out in the field by his father. His family didn't even consider bringing him in because they didn't think he would be. David was the weakest link in his family. He was just forgotten. He wasn't allowed to go to war. He was the youngest brother. he was just a lowly shepherd boy. Do you think David has some self-doubt? I mean, like, he probably had to, like, thinking, I'm forgotten and I'm the weakest link. Do you have self-doubt? Our inner voice at times wants to make, or will make us self-conscious of our weaknesses to where we want to try to hide them. Like, we may talk ourselves out of doing something that God is calling us to because we know we're not strong in that area. Maybe it's public speaking. Maybe it's sharing God's word with a coworker or a friend at school. Maybe we don't commit to the calling that God has for us. Maybe it's, what is it for you? I don't know. We talk ourselves out of sharing with a friend because we don't know enough. We don't commit to the calling God has because we're scared of public speaking and speaking in front of people because it's scary and it's uncomfortable at times. And we don't get out of what's comfortable because we don't want to experience failure. And guess what? Your weaknesses, they actually are a good thing. You do have weaknesses, and you may not want to show them because you don't want others to see them. You're not willing to be vulnerable. And you think to yourself, I just can't do it. And guess what? When you tell yourself you just can't do it, you're absolutely right. You can't do it. But God can. God, you can. We find ourselves like David. Our weaknesses, they're noticeable to many around us. And we feed our mind with our own thoughts and thinking, man, I really hope no one notices. Or our own thoughts keep us from experiencing the deepness and great things God has for us in our lives. And sometimes we are our own greatest enemy in life because we let our own thoughts hold us back. Our first challenge is our inner voice. So how do I deal with my weaknesses? How are they a good thing? Here's how we deal with them. We stop listening to ourselves and we listen to God's voice. I'm going to just read a few verses here for note takers. You guys can write these down and if you want, read them later this week. 2 Corinthians 12:10. That is why for Christ's sake I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. For when you are weak, God, He is strong. He will be your strength. God, He uses the weak. He's not looking for the people without flaws. And maybe we feed our own thoughts and we don't commit to whatever God's calling us to because we're like, man, maybe God, He doesn't know about my weaknesses and I don't want Him to see them because I want to still be used by Him. God already knew your weaknesses before you were even created, and He still wants to use you. This morning, I just want to give you a few more verses. If you're struggling with self-doubt, I would love for you to read them, and I've found them very helpful in my own life. 1 John 3:1. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know Him. Zephaniah 3:17. The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In His love, He will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you singing. In Romans 8:6. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Our weaknesses, they are a window to allow God's strengths to shine through. Did you guys hear that this morning? Let me repeat that. Our weaknesses are a window to allow God's strength to shine through. I just love that right there. God, He will shine through our weaknesses. We need to live in confession of our weaknesses and embrace them, because God who loves you will shine through them. Is your inner voice competing with God's voice? There's a second voice that tries to compete with God's voice in our life. So you guys probably just remember what we read, but I'm going to just paraphrase it a little bit. So David, he gets up, he's like, who's going to go out and fight him? David says, I'm going to go out and fight this Philistine Goliath. And his brother's like, what? No. And his brother's all mad at him. Saul literally tells David, you are not able to go out and fight him. You are only a boy. And everyone around him is just like, David, that's crazy. Like, you'll die out there. It's not safe. Like, what are you doing, David? Why? What are you doing? The second voice that will compete with God's voice in our life is the voices of those around us. David, when he said he would go out and fight Goliath, all he heard was doubt. He heard unbelief. That's all he heard. No support when he said he would go out and fight Goliath. And some of those people were close to him as his brother was. Have you ever felt the doubt of others around you? See, as kids, we dreamed of what we wanted to do, because as kids, we could be anything we wanted. And we were all excited about that. We would tell different people. And then you may have that one kid who thought he knew better than you. Be like, oh, you can't be that. And he'd come and crush your dreams like, you have to be this and this, and you can't be that, obviously, is what he's saying. And I'm like, and all you want to do is just like smack that kid upside the head, because all he's doing is crushing your dreams and not believing in you. And then all of that sense of purpose and joy just goes away. Like when you hear some doubt, I just feel like, man, that takes away our sense of joy in life, because we were excited about it, but someone else said, no, that's not right. And sometimes in life, the greatest enemy is a close friend. 2 years ago, I felt God calling me to go to Liberia on a mission trip in July. And I heard many people have come back here to share pictures and stories, and I was like, yes, God, when is my time to go? When are you going to call me to Liberia? And God called me in the summer of 2016 to go to Liberia. And it was a great trip. And I was getting excited for it. And I started telling different family members. And then I had some family members, I'm not trying to call them out because I still love them and always will, but they didn't support me in my decision in going to Liberia. They were like, it's not safe. Well, like, why would you even do that? Why don't you just send money and have someone else go, or you can pray? And they just couldn't wrap their minds around why I wanted to go. And it hurt because they were close and they were one of my best friends. I considered them my best friends. And I'm like, you're my family. Shouldn't you support me in everything I do, no matter what? And they just couldn't. And it hurt. I still love them, and I'm still talking to them all the time. But it took me a while because their support and just their doubts really affected me. And here's the thing. They don't have to understand. No one in our lives has to understand what God's calling us to, no matter what's crazy. You're the only one who has to understand. You can explain anything to them. It's not their calling, it's yours. And see, I listened to them, but I didn't listen to the point of compromising my calling of what God is calling me to do. And that's what we need to do in life. We can listen to what people say, but don't listen because they're saying, oh, don't do this, or I have doubts about you doing this. It's not theirs for you. And they may even have the best interests for you and want the best things for you, but they don't ultimately know what's best for you. God, who speaks into our lives, He ultimately knows what's best, and that's the voice we need to listen to. We just need to block out the noise around us and just listen to God's voice. And how do we move past the voices of those around us just like our inner voice? The answer, listen to God's voice. Here's some more scripture if you guys want to write those down for you note takers. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. 2 Corinthians 6:18. And I will be a father to you, and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. God is calling us out to the battle lines like David is going. And He knows what's best for you. Others may doubt and call us crazy because of what God's calling us to, and because we want to follow and go deeper with what God's calling us to. But that's okay. God knows what's best, and He wouldn't call you to something if He didn't think you could handle it with Him. Ecclesiastes 10:2. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. And see, maybe that's why in the escape room I started trying to go in and prove myself, trying to find clues as fast as possible. Because I started listening to myself, like, maybe they're right, and then I started listening to other people, like, oh, maybe I am the weakest link, like, I can't do math, I can't do this, and like, I don't want to hold us back. I started listening to those voices around us. Who are you listening to? Do you need to block out the voices of others around you this morning to hear God's voice? This morning, we've talked about two voices that are trying to compete with God's voice in your life. One, that's your inner voice. And two, that's the voices of those around you. This morning, I want to talk about one last voice that is competing probably harder than the other two voices to try to drown out God's voice in your life. We're going to skip a few verses in chapter 17 and jump to verse 41. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was a little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a living God in Israel." Man, just imagine Goliath's voice here. So we're David in this situation. We're out at the battle lines, and Goliath comes out, and he's talking. You know, Goliath's voice. Let's try to just imagine it here real quick. It's probably not like this. "Am I a dog that you would come at me with sticks?" It's not that high-pitched voice. No, Goliath's voice. It says, "Am I a dog that you would come at me with sticks? Who even are you? Why are you up here at the battle lines? Do you know who I am?" That is Goliath's voice. It is loud, full of hate. It's intense, and it's full of mockery. Let me tell you, Goliath, he wanted to absolutely kill David, and that's the third voice that will compete against God's voice, is an enemy that wants to absolutely destroy you. Goliath wanted to rip David to shreds. And that's what our enemy wants to do to us. He hates us and wants to do the exact same thing to us like he did David. Our enemy is speaking loudly, trying to block out God's voice. Have you ever just felt like you were hearing so many different voices and you were just being pulled every which way, and it all is just like deafening and it's unbearable, and you're like, man, I just need those headphones that block out the noise because I literally can't even think. I'm just hearing so many different voices. That's your enemy trying to pull you down. He's trying to block out God's thundering whisper. 1 Peter 5:8. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. I want to give you guys a quick scouting report on your enemy. I love doing them in high school, and they're very helpful. So here's a quick scouting report on our enemy, Satan. He is looking for every opportunity to pounce and destroy us. He loves to attack when we're weak and we're not on guard. He is real, and he is big, and comes in many different forms, and looks different for all of us how he may attack us. Guys, we are at war, and he is real. I want you to know that this morning. If you're sitting here this morning thinking, yes, Will, that is me. I've just given into this voice so many different times. I'm just wondering, is God even still speaking to me? Maybe you haven't experienced this yet, but you will someday. I've been there. I just want to let you guys know that God, he is still talking to you, and he will always be right there, holding your hand, walking with you out to the battle line, speaking to you. We fight our enemy by listening to God and trusting him that he will help us through it, no matter what. and we listen to him when he speaks. James 4:7. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Ephesians 6:11. I'm just going to read a verse here, but I would challenge you guys to go through and read chapter 6 of Ephesians this week. It is a great chapter, and it is a big help. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Isaiah 41:13. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand, and who says to you, do not fear, I will help you. And then Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goeth with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And then finally, Revelation 2:10. Lost my chapter. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as victor's crown. God, who is almighty and powerful, will be with you. Why Satan is trying to drown out God's voice is because he even knows how strong, much more strong and powerful God is than he is. That's why he's doing everything he can to drown out God's voice. At this time, I'm going to invite the musicians back up. And then today, we looked at 3 different voices that are trying to compete with God's voice in our own lives. I just want to recap those. Are you listening to your inner voice, or are you listening to God's voice? Are you listening to the voices of those around you, or are you blocking them out and listening to God's voice? And then the third one, can you hear God's voice over your enemy's voice? I want to just rewind back to the beginning of this morning to remind you of our statement question that we've wrestled with throughout this morning. It is, we have lots of voices that speak into our lives, but there's only one that we need to hear. And this question that we've wrestled with, what voices are you hearing in your life that are blocking you from hearing what God says about you? I ran cross country in high school, and I always had family, friends, or just other people there cheer me on, and I loved that. And at the beginning of my career, all I would do is look for the voice, try to listen for familiar voices, because I love just hearing people's voices cheer me on. It helped me. But I realized it didn't actually help me in the end, because I wasn't running as fast as I wanted to, and I wasn't finishing as fast as I wanted to. And then in the later half of my career, I had those same voices still cheering me on, but I started blocking them out, because I soon realized I shifted my focus. My only goal was to run fast and finish as fast as possible. So when I shifted my focus from listening to the voices of those around me to my only goal, I got better. And this morning, you may be sitting here thinking, I've just had a really rough week, or I'm just in this dry season right now, and I've just heard so many different voices in my life, and I'm just wondering, is God even still speaking to me right now? Like, I just haven't heard that voice in a long time. And the invitation this morning is, if you just want to block out those voices around you, I invite you to come forward, spend some time with the Lord, just to hear him speak. Will you stand as we sing?